Hello, all of my wild darlings. Good to see you. Nice to spend some time with you. I'm Tad. I will be here for approximately 1 hour, approximately. At that point, I will be going off shift for the evening. It is 1 o'clock in the morning here in Northern California. We have been having, as I mentioned in a Facebook post, absolutely biblical rains coming through after quite a few nice days. Last couple of days have been extremely stormy, and I was seriously worried that we might not make it tonight because right in the middle of one of the downpours, the lights all started flickering. And in other circumstances, that might not be so worrisome, but where we live, up in the hills, they're a very common thing when a tree goes down and takes out the power lines, and it happens several times a winter. And although I have a kind of a generator thing set up, it's not enough to it's not enough to transcend the other problems that it would cause in terms of a broadcast. But here I am. So all good. It is currently placid outside, no rain at the moment. So although it's still possible, sometimes the trees don't fall for like an hour or two after the rains, but it has been a while now, so we will hope that everything is going to go as planned. And I will finish up reading Sleeping Late on Judgment Day tonight. Beyond that, I don't know, because I don't know how long it's going to take me to finish the book. I have something prepped that will probably be the next thing I will read, which is not something of mine, but I will tell you that if we get to it tonight. If not, I will introduce it more formally tomorrow. What else did I want to share with you? Oh, talk about boring things. Because I had to have a medical procedure last week. I actually took my earrings out. So this is like what I actually, these are my poor creased ears here, and creased from years of wearing earrings, and almost never taking them out. So this is an exciting chance to see me with no earrings. I know, be still, my heart, how overwhelmingly exciting that is. Anyway, what else? We have had, as I said, a week of rain, which means a week of dogs in bad moods. Cats bored and depressed because I'm not down there very often because I've moved everything upstairs. As you can see, I'm sitting in front of one of Deb's blankets right now, another one of her very pretty color combinations. I don't know how well you can see it, but from where I can see it, it looks pretty good. By next week, I will be back down in the office of despair and disaster again. It's not really an office of despair and disaster. It's actually quite a nice office. But my beloved is supposed to return on Tuesday. Knock wood, everything goes smoothly. No weirdness at the airport on either end. So I will be, at that point, moving back downstairs, and we should be well established in something else to read at that point. So what else? Yeah, as I mentioned, sad, grumpy dogs. Grumpy because they can't go outside, sad because Deb is not here. This has especially been difficult for Lemon, who is very attached to Deb. Deb is her, in the Conrad Lorenzian sense, she has fixed on Deborah as her main person. Although she's very fond of me and does like to cuddle up with me, and especially, obviously, in Deborah's absence. So the fact that I spend a lot of time lying around thinking actually works fairly well. So dogs are just kind of in a holding pattern since I can't really tell them how long till Deborah returns. They're just trusting. Well, Johnny is an old hand at this point. Johnny is an old timer, and he knows sometimes people go away, and then eventually they come back. Although, in dog days or dog weeks, it must be extremely long time to have to wait. Anything else that I wanted to mention going in? Splintered Sun, out of my hands now. I hope I've done everything to it that needed to be done, but in fact, it is currently gone back. The copy edited manuscript went out on last Monday, I think. Another big long book, as somebody once said to Was it Oswald? No, it wasn't Oswald Spengler. It was the guy who wrote the... anyway, another long book, sir. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Yeah, it's another long one. I hadn't intended it to be. I thought it was going to be... How many times can I say this before, I mean, my credibility is shot anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I thought, all right, a brief, short novel, lots of action, et cetera, et cetera. And there is lots of action. There's lots of things happen. There's tons of characters. That's my main problem. I establish characters, and then I want to know what actually happens to them. And as a result, the books get long. But anyway, so that book is out of my hands. I am working on the next one, and I am also just, keeping things going, keeping the hearth warm, keeping the plants watered, keeping the animals fed and entertained as best I can. And that's pretty much been what I've been doing for the last almost 3 weeks now. So, anything else? I don't know. I can't think of anything particularly important to share with you, except I'm getting really bored of being stuck here in the house. I'm not 100% stuck. Occasionally our daughter returns from her busy life and stays here for a few days, even though technically I think this is her place of residence, but she pops in, stays for a few days, and helps out. The rest of the time it's just me, and because I have to take both dogs with me when I go anywhere, obviously my outlets are limited. So I'm getting a little cabin fever. The rain doesn't help. But these are first world problems, and I am not actually complaining. I am just explaining why I have very little to say, because I haven't done much except work in my head and feel sorry for sad dogs. So that's it. That's my life, folks. That is the excitement of being a world-renowned writer, is dog sitting and plant watering. But there are worse things to do with your time. And as I said, I'm not complaining. I'm just reporting. Okay, let's see if anybody has showed up. Oh, yeah, there's a few people here. Let us see if we can find some of them and say hello. Isaac is here. Hello, Isaac. Good to see you. Isaac is ready to hear a story. Christy Sanders has popped in. Suzanne Owen, greetings from spring-like weather in Yorkshire. Rain and sunshine. Off to visit Bluebells after this. Well, that sounds lovely. Everything is completely soaked around here, which is actually good because we'll probably have long, no rain stretches, although they're talking about an El Nino this year. Or a La Nina, I can't remember which. So we'll have to see what happens. Weather's weird. It's very, very weird. Anyway, Christina says hello. Hello, Christina. And Chris Fab says hello from rainy northern Germany. Petra also checks in. Mr. Mark Craigbaum. I was just thinking about you today, buddy. Mark checks in. Nikki Chetwynd, hello. Good to see you. Checking in from Leicestershire. Maureen Starkey, hello, Maureen. Good to see you, too. Good morning. And Petra, very chic. Well, actually, what it was, I had another shirt I was going to wear, which was one of the ones Deb gave me. But it was a very, Deb, as I think I mentioned in another broadcast, Deb likes to give me very complicated floral shirts, which are beautiful. But I didn't want to sit in front of Deb's lovely geometric blanket with a big, splashy, colorful shirt on. So I thought I'd go for something a little more low-key, if that makes sense. Mr. Mark Redmond checking in from Yorkshire and also confirms the sunshine and rain. Maria Jose Blatt says, hi, Tad and friends. James Worf says, hello, everyone. And isn't that nice? And Isaac says, my friend who works for the Arcata Airport, that's in Northern California, went home early because the San Francisco airport was closed. I'll bet that was in the height of the storm there. Mr. Jeremy Ehrman says, got to experience some San Francisco wind and a little bit of rain this evening. Lucky me, I guess. Anyway, good to have you, Jeremy, as always. Becky Willems, hello, hello. Good to see you. Nicole Grass, hello. Chenua, nice to see you, too, and nice to have you back. We've missed you. Penny Davies, hello, Penny. All right, yes, let me see what else there is. There we go. There is my mother-in-law, Hazel. Hazel says, "Morning, darling. Deb is in London with friends." Yes, I know that. I just spoke to her. She is with your granddaughter at the moment, our niece, and seemed to be having a lovely time. She had just gone to the Tate Modern, last I heard, which is a place that Deb and I always go when we're in London. And obviously Deb went this time, even though I'm not there and it can't quite be as much fun. But anyway, Chenoweth says, "Another long book, oh darn." Stephen Watson, "Morning, pattering feet." Is that, oh, you're hearing the dogs? Yes, that's Johnny, trying to figure out why all the doors are closed. There's Kristen Rule. Hello, Kristen. And Isaac says, oh, this is nice. "All the trees are in bloom. The valley is breathtaking." Isaac lives in Utah. So lovely, excellent. Nice to check in with all of you. Lovely to have you with me. I'll start reading because it's already 11 minutes after. I don't know how long this is going to last. So if it gets close to the top of the hour, I may just finish it off and then say goodnight, rather than start something new with only a few minutes left. If it only runs half an hour, I'll probably start something new, which I will explain about if it comes to pass tonight. Hello, John. Hello, buddy. You look worried. It's okay. Life is good, even for an old dog. Yes. I'm getting the look, though. What are you babbling about now? Look, it's the middle of the night. Okay, so let us go back to Sleeping Late on Judgment Day. I am going to go back a few paragraphs just to put it into some kind of perspective. Bobby has just recently been out to see Carl Gustavus and has had no real answers to any of the things he asked about, but he's learned a few more things. And he kind of asked Gustavus if he might be somebody that they already knew, passing, maybe an angel, maybe a demon, maybe something. And Gustavus said, I wouldn't answer that even if it was true, but it's not true. And anyway, so Bobby has just returned, and I'm going to go read about like the last page before we stopped last time. "I parked my gaudy yellow ride in the Tierra Green garage and headed for the stairs. I had decided to call Clarence because I thought I'd better share some of this with somebody, and he was about the only person left who knew enough of the story to understand. Not to mention that he'd handed me a major piece of it himself. Oh, yes, that reminds me. That's one of the things that Bobby had gone to ask Gustavus about. Namely, he dropped a name on him, which I believe was an angel named Samkiel, and asked him what he knew about Samkiel. So that's what was going on with the trip out to Gustavus, among other things. I parked my gaudy yellow ride. Oh, no, I already read that. Thought I'd better share some of this with somebody, and he was about the only person left who knew enough of the story to understand, not to mention that he'd handed me a major piece of it himself. But just as the phone screen lit up and I started to put in numbers, something punched me in the back, hard, knocking the wind out of me. I staggered, and it was harder to turn around than it should have been. I got myself swiveled just in time to see the pale, staring face of one of Balder von Reinmann's minions, Timon, the dark-haired one. His eyes were wide with an almost sexual excitement, and I could see the sweat beaded all over his face in the pale light of the garage's overhead light. He had a long, bloody knife in his hand, an SS dagger. "The fuck," I said, and he stabbed me again, this time in the belly. He grabbed me with his free arm so he could plunge the knife in several more times. My knees buckled, and he let go of me. "You killed him!" The words tumbled crookedly out of his mouth. "The most beautiful man, our leader. He could have been one of the world's masters." Timon's dark hair hung in his face. He looked way too emo for a genuine murderer. "You ruined it." "No," I said, bubbling blood. "You ruined it." I was on my hands and knees, drizzling blood, trying to find a way not to shriek at the pain that had set the whole of my torso on fire, front and back. I was talking to distract him, but it felt like I was belching out fire and broken glass. I grabbed his legs with my hands and began to drag myself upright. He tried to pull away, but somehow it didn't occur to him to stab me again. "Dumbass," I grunted through clenched teeth. "You could have been a camp counselor, or a deadhead, or a fucking comic book fan. Something decent." And there it was, tucked in his belt like a birthday surprise for me. My own sofa gun, the Smith & Wesson 38 that he'd stolen at the museum. "But you had to hook up with a bunch of miserable racist Nazi shits." I did my best to punch him so hard in the nuts that he'd die, but I was pretty weak and only gave him a mild thump. As he stumbled back, though, I managed to hang on to the butt of the revolver. It took him a second to realize what I was pointing at him. "I bet you wish you'd taken up golf," I said as his eyes grew wide, "or collecting stamps." Then I emptied the revolver into the middle of him. Like a good little fascist, he'd cleaned and reloaded it, so he got all 5 rounds. I don't think the last 2 or 3 were necessary, but by that point I couldn't actually see anything. And even the healthy crack of the 38 airweight sounded like the tap of a distant hammer. I died pretty quickly after that. Chapter 48, One Tick Away. Okay, here's something you may not have known. Apparently, dead people dream. How did I know I was dead? Well, unless it's ever happened to you, and you were an angel at the time, like I was, it's hard to explain. Basically, there was a brief moment when all the lights went out, the party was over, and I could no longer feel the breath of the highest whispering in my blood. I can't explain it any better than that. So, I know for sure I was dead. What I don't know is how I came back to life in the same body, but I'll get to that in a moment. As for the dreaming part, it was Kaz, but somehow I was seeing through her eyes, and I thought she must be in hell because all I saw was fire and smoke and hopeless faces. She was stumbling past them, and the owners of those faces kept trying to grab at her to pull her down, but she fought past them and out into a swirling nothingness. Suddenly there was a line of fire in front of her, and then something else was there. Something big, something powerful, something that had come for her and her alone. It raised its hand. And I woke up, shouting, thrashing, trying to help her, save her, but I was restrained. No, only restrained on one side, and not exactly restrained either. Somebody was holding my hand. "Bobby, it's okay. You're in the hospital. Don't fight, you'll tear out the stitches." It took me a long moment to focus. Part of me was still seeing that sparking hole in the air, the huge dark shape stepping through to take Kaz. "Clarence?" "Shit." He almost smiled, but he looked worried. "I guess even dying isn't going to get you to use my real name, is it?" "Almost." I fell back against the pillow, or at least something shaped like a pillow, but with no actual pillowish qualities like softness or comfort. "Are you sure?" I couldn't understand what I was doing here. "Are you still holding my hand?" "Does it make you nervous?" "No, I was just checking. I'm trying to figure out what's what." What's what included a standard issue hospital room with the window blind shut and everything around me the same institutional beige color. "Why am I alive?" "Because God loves you?" I was tired already and wanted to go back to sleep, to drop into darkness where I could at least dream about Kaz. "Could be, or maybe it's more of a curse than a reward." I felt like the hacked remains of a Thanksgiving turkey. I swear I could feel places where the neo-Nazi bastard's knife had scraped the bones in my chest on its way to my vital organs. The guy who stabbed me? Dead. Very dead. Name was Jeffrey or something? Jeffrey something. One of the Black Sun guys. Yeah, I recognized him. I was feeling waves of weariness now. What's the news? How long have I been out? A good while. Several days. The doctors barely saved you. Monica and a bunch of others have been here a couple of times to see you, but you were unconscious, full of tubes, and not much fun. As far as how things are going, heaven-wise, pretty much the same. Still the big hush-hush about you-know-who. I'd wish they'd give her a golden parachute. A real one. Let her try to use it from high Earth orbit. I changed my position on the bed. It hurt, but not so badly that I couldn't feel my body already healing itself. Soon I'd be back to normal in a world without Sam and Kaz, or any point at all. Fucking heaven. They'd found the best way to punish me. Simply keep me alive and stupid and suffering forever. Clarence squeezed my hand and then let go. I'm so sorry, Bobby. About Sam. Do you think there's any chance he'll be back? He sure didn't think so. After a short silence, he said, I miss him too, you know, a lot. I almost said something sarcastic, but the impulse just evaporated. I know, kid. He really liked you, and that wasn't all that common with him. Sam spent a lot of time with me in the last few months. It was like he was coaching me to take over for him. I think maybe he had a feeling that something would happen. Coaching you to what? Say that again? The kid looked embarrassed. He knew you'd need a partner, someone to watch your back. I gave him a long look. Sam was right, of course. Sometimes I'm a half-empty balloon, but sometimes I'm a kite. It's nice to have someone around who knows when to grab the string and keep me anchored. We'll see. Or if you'd rather start interviewing other applicants, I'll let G-Man know. Fuck you. I'm not that happy about being alive, so don't you dare make me laugh. It feels like I've got stitches holding my stitches together. I still want to know why I'm not a corpse. And don't tell me it's because God loves me. Okay, I won't. Clarence smiled and stood up. But you ought to at least entertain the possibility. You're dead to me, Harrison. Dead. And you're alive, Bobby, whether it's convenient or not. See you visiting hours tomorrow. I almost let him get out the door before I remembered. Hey, Junior. What? Just wanted to check something. Sam Kiel, right? Sorry? The guy who sent you for training, an Archangel. Sam Kiel. That was his name, wasn't it? Yeah? He gave me a look. What made you think of that? Nothing. Next time you come back, bring alcohol. Not happening, B. He went out, closing the door quietly, as if loud noises might be particularly upsetting to the recently dead. Because I had been dead, or at least as dead as an angel ever gets. I was sure of that, but here I still was, and I hadn't even been recycled into a new body. The things I'd been considering when the guy with the knife jumped me on my doorstep were coming back to me, definitely including my most recent conversation with Gustavus. But I was tired from being awake, worn out just from that little give and take with Clarence, so I didn't get much thinking done before I was asleep again. I was standing in the middle of so much beauty that even the hardest of hearts would have broken. Even the most stiff-necked would have bowed his head. But even in the middle of the Elysian fields, with the shining towers of the celestial city on view before me, I felt oddly hollow. "Angel Deloriel," a voice boomed, filling the green world with implied echoes, although only I heard the words. "You are wanted in heaven." I wasn't surprised. I hadn't come here by my own choice, so I had been expecting a summons. I could have taken the slow way and appreciated the glory that was humanity beyond death, the contented souls in the Lord's fields and the tuneful, heart-healing songs of the choir invisible. But I was tired. Not body tired, but soul tired. This is the one problem. Been sitting underneath the Oculus. I hope you guys can still hear me. Let me just check how that is. Yeah, I guess you can. Just looking at my meters here. Where were we? But I was tired. Not body tired, but soul tired, which is deeper. I let myself be carried directly to whatever fate was waiting for me. I found myself somewhere I'd never been before. From the way the light fell, or didn't fall, it's hard to explain, I was pretty sure I was actually within the heavenly city, but it felt like a part where I'd never been before. For a moment, I wondered if I'd finally made it into the Empyrean, the center of everything, forbidden to the rank and file, but I guess I'll never know. All I could say for certain was that it was a place that felt both indoor and outdoor at the same time, with the silence and solemnity of a crypt under a cathedral, but the airiness of a tent on a windy hillside. The walls even seemed to be some kind of fabric, light as cloud, moving in a breeze I couldn't actually feel. Except for the intimation of size and the heavenly light, it could have been the field headquarters of an important general, which gave me a clue about who I was going to see. "Angel Deloriel, God loves you." I found myself facing a figure wrapped in brilliance. The angel was seated, but on what I couldn't see, and although I couldn't make out face or features, only a man-like shape of light and cloud, the voice confirmed my guess. "Lord Carael, you called me." "Come here, son." A moment later, I was much closer, and also seated, but as with the angel militant himself, I couldn't tell if I was on a throne or a camp stool or somehow perched in midair. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" "With respect, Master, yes, I have." "And now someone else has tried to kill you." "How fortunate he failed. These mortals are stubborn things." Carael smiled. I don't know how I knew that, since he didn't really have a face I could make out, but I felt it, like a curtain pulled back a bit to let the sunshine through. "Believe it or not, Deloriel, not everyone in heaven is out to get you," he said. "Some of us admire your intelligence and your, how shall I put it, your determination. And of course, some don't. Anaita would be one of those, I guess." A cloud rolled in front of the sun, or the curtain fell closed again. "We don't really need to talk about her. Nobody is proud of what she did or how far it got, but you don't have to take the blame for that any longer." "I don't?" "No, sir. You, son, are even going to be rewarded a bit. From now on, consider yourself restored to duty and clear to charges. But that duty will only be half-time for as long as we need you, for as long as we need until you're back to your old troublemaking self. We'll make sure the San Judas Central Office has its caseload covered." He said it with such an air of generous, cheerful finality that he might have been God explaining to Adam about how this direction was going to be called up and the opposite would be named down. "Thank you, Lord Carael." "You don't have to keep calling me Lord, son. I'm not the highest. I'm just one of his faithful servants. Please call me Carael." "Okay, but Can I ask a few questions? Of course. He spread his glowing arms expansively, but with the kind of grace that reminds you why angels are angels. You've earned it. What about my trial? It will be as if it never happened. We've announced that the whole thing was Anaita's deliberate attempt to confuse and mislead. Wow. Thanks. That's a huge load off my mind. And Anaita herself? Kariel went a little bit cloudy for a moment. He might have been shaking his head in sadness, not in anger. If he'd had a head instead of just a vaguely head-shaped glow, that is. She will be punished. Don't you worry about that. Yes, but did she explain why she did some of those things? Because a lot of what happened doesn't really make sense. For a moment, he seemed oddly still. Like what, son? Well, I don't want to waste your time. I know you must be very busy. Are you in charge of my part of Earth now that Anaita's out of the picture? The division of duties in the third sphere is a great deal more complicated than that, but I suppose the simple answer is yes, a thin beam of sunshine. I suppose I'm your boss now, but of course the hierarchy remains the same. You'll still report to Temuel, I said, cutting him off. Right? Right. He hadn't liked being interrupted. So if there's nothing more, Deloriel, then I will send you back and get on with some of that new business waiting for me. If you have another moment, sir, I didn't finish telling you some of the things that didn't make sense. See, it was all weird from the very beginning. Like when the souls first began disappearing, the ones we found out later went to Kainos. Edward Walker was the very first one, and I was there right after he killed himself. I was with Hell's prosecutor, Grasswax. Grasswax, the one who was butchered by Eligor over the feather. It was very strange sitting with a powerful angel discussing secrets that only a few days ago had still been getting people ripped to pieces or sent to hell, or both. Yes, that's the one, sir. But the weird thing was, when the first soul went missing, Grasswax and I weren't the only folk from our two sides who showed up. In fact, it was like someone pulled a fire alarm. Almost as soon as we noticed that the soul was missing, angels and demons were all over the place. The airiness and light got a little roiled. Interesting point. Why would Anaita do that? Why risk her entire plan by bringing in extra scrutiny and more witnesses so soon? Exactly. I imagine it was Eligor, Kariel said after a moment. Just because he had a bargain with her doesn't mean he wouldn't try to make things difficult for her. He is a Grand Duke of Hell, after all. Good point, sir. Which leads me to the next question. I spent a lot of time thinking about how the bargain worked. Anaita's feather for Eligor's horn, and how Anaita kept it hidden, and what she wanted to do, which was to be worshipped, to be simplistic about it. Kariel's voice took on a tone of disapproval. She never got past her origins. She didn't truly appreciate the divine plan. Clearly. But here's a question I've never been able to answer. What about Eligor? What did he get out of it? What do you mean? It's quite simple, my Kariel, sir. A powerful angel and a powerful demon made a bargain and went to great lengths to keep it secret. For instance, Anaita sent Walter Sanders to hell and brought a serial killer back from the dead, two kinds of dead, and sent him after me, all to keep the lid on what she'd done. And what do you know about angels in hell, Deloriel? The cloudiness threatened a storm. I swallowed, or would have if I'd been on Earth. I think you know, sir. I think you know where I've been and a lot of what I've done. Anaita wouldn't have a reason to keep quiet about it, not once she was really in heaven's power for good. And I also told Pathiel Sa, or Pathiel Sa, the angel of conciliation, pretty much everything while I was imprisoned. A long silence, and it was a silence. We might have been in outer space for all the background noise that wasn't. Let's assume that you're right, the angel militant said, that I know more about what you've been doing than is going to be officially admitted, Deloria. And yet I'm willing still to let you go back to your normal job and even give you a few perks. I had the distinct sense of a shiny lure bobbing in front of me, but I wasn't in the mood. I hear you, and I'll be happy to do that once I've had a chance to finish talking to you about all this. You really are a very determined fella, said Cariel. So everyone tells me. I took an imaginary breath, the kind you take before jumping into the deep end. Okay, so let's put aside the question of what was in this for Grand Duke Eligor, although I think that's probably pretty important. Help me out with one last thing. You know all about my partner, Clarence, by now, right? Clarence? Sorry, kind of a private joke. Haraheliel, real Earth name, Harrison Eli, sent in at first to keep an eye on Advocate Samariel on behalf of management. Then he later decided Sam was getting a bum deal and sort of threw in his lot with me. He was one of the souls picked up when you guys raided Kainos, but someone's put him back on the street again. Kind of like you're offering to do with me if I stop asking questions. Ah, he said. That Clarence. Right. Well, apparently, instead of going through the normal training like Sam and I had when we joined Counter-Strike, when Clarence was being prepared for his undercover assignment for the big bosses, he was sent somewhere different, somewhere I'd never heard about, got schooled on guns there and all kinds of stuff. Yes, so that was Anaita's place, son. He really did sound like a military officer. Just his serious tone of voice made you want to get up and salute. She needed information about the Magians and wanted a source she could control so she could stay quiet about them. Or if things went bad, she could manufacture an excuse that she'd been investigating them all along, but I never trusted her. That sounds exactly right, sir. And it makes a lot of sense. But the problem is it's not true. A very long pause this time. What? You heard me. It's not true. Do you want to know what is true? Clarence's training, that whole little mini spy camp of Anaita's, a kind of under-the-table Counter-Strike unit not answerable to the heavenly hierarchy, was arranged by an archangel named Samkiel. And Samkiel's one of your oldest allies, I found out. Now, why would he do that for Anaita? Unless you asked him to. Son, this is getting dangerously close. We both know what this is getting dangerously close to, Cariel, sir. And you can silence me any one of 1,000 ways, but since we're both here, you might as well hear me out first. Yes, I knew this was ridiculously dangerous. I'm not that kind of stupid, but I couldn't stop now. I've been waiting too long to put it all together. See, the only arrangement where everything makes sense is that Anaita wasn't working alone, that she was never working alone. Somebody else must have known exactly when the first soul snatch was going to take place, because only the folks involved would have been able to put out the alert so quickly and have angels and demons swarming all over Edward Walker's house like that. Eligor didn't
really have a reason to screw things up for Anaita when her plan was going to do heaven more harm than it would hell. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. But why would some partner of hers want to screw things up, as you so eloquently put it, son? I'm not sure. A warning? Or just to get some things into the public records as quickly as possible? Insurance that could be used later on? We may never know. The silence hung thickly. And then the thing with Samkiel. Why would you approve him doing that for Anaita unless you were helping her out, or pretending to? Because if she wanted the protection of being able to claim she'd been investigating it herself in case things went bad, well, then her partner would want the same thing. And what better protection than being able to say, I sent her to my old ally Samkiel precisely so I could keep an eye on what she was doing, and if I'd known she was involved in a crime against heaven, of course I would have acted immediately, and blah, blah, blah. Carile's voice was even flatter than usual, and usually you could balance a full drink on it without spilling a drop. You know that proves nothing, son. It's just speculation. This is all speculation, of course, sir. It's kind of what I do. I tried to sound more confident than I felt, but it's hard to be really brave when you know the person you're accusing of high crimes can extinguish you as easily as a birthday candle on a cupcake. But it leads to the most critical unanswered question. What did Elgor want? Why would the horseman risk his own standing in hell, give his enemies the means to destroy him if they found out, just to make a deal with Anaita, who we already know was a bit unstable, not as careful as she should be, prone to silencing allies, and not generally beloved in heaven? Tell me. Because he didn't really want a deal with Anaita. He wanted to make contact with someone else, someone he could make a long-term alliance with, someone who didn't make the kind of mistakes that Anaita made and who would almost certainly become even more powerful after she was gone. Somebody like you, Lord Carile. It was a magnificent silence, which gave me plenty of time to wonder what it would feel like to be erased from reality. So you are suggesting that I was involved with Anaita's madness from the beginning? Carile said finally. That she thought I was her partner, but in truth I manipulated things from behind the scenes all along the way and then left her to hang when the time was right? In a word, sir, amen. Then it's your turn to answer, questioned Deloriel. If all this was true, why haven't I destroyed you too? Why would I leave a loose end like you dangling? The air of good old boy drill sergeant familiarity that always colored Carile's speech in my presence had abruptly disappeared. He was clipped, precise, and as calm as a deep, deep pond, but I could see the darkness roll through his glowing presence like a storm. In short, why do you still exist? That's the one thing I don't know, I admitted. I don't believe bumping off witnesses is really your style, but I doubt that's the most important reason. It might have something to do with what Anaita said about knowing me when I was alive, but maybe that's not even true, or if it is true, it's irrelevant to the bigger picture. I had run out of tricks and revelations. I suddenly realized the next words might be the last I ever spoke. I can only guess that for some reason, sir, you think you might need me someday. The roil of darkness coagulated, and for a moment I was facing something from which no light gleamed, as though heaven had tipped sideways, and I was looking down into a hole full of ultimate nothingness. Then, as suddenly as an eye blink, it dispersed, and I was looking at Carile's misty but luminous shape again. An interesting guess, Deloriel. You'll never know if it's right. In fact, you'll never know if any of this is right, but you will definitely know when I do want something from you. I'll tell you one thing now, and one thing only. I have ambitions. Ambitions that you couldn't begin to understand. I couldn't help myself. But why would you want to change anything? It's heaven, right? Heaven is perfect. Corral squeezed out the gleam that indicated a smile. I honestly couldn't tell you what kind of smile it was, amused or angry. He'd stopped pretending to be my bluff, gruff commanding officer and was now something much more distant and difficult to read. We all have choices, Advocate Delorio, whether we are angel or mortal. We make our own path by those choices. And since we are all different, it stands to reason that some of us make better decisions than others. Those who make the best decisions should be allowed to do so for the good of all. Do you understand? I couldn't tell whether I was hearing the plain, unvarnished truth or just another excuse for a fascist takeover. I came extremely close to pointing that out, but there was no question Corral was different from Anaita, and I really had no idea what he planned. Maybe he was right. Certainly the highest couldn't be too pleased about how things had been running lately, so for once I kept my mouth shut. He seemed satisfied with my silence. Exactly. As for your being useful, well, you had better hope so, Delorio. Leaving aside all this conspiracy talk, you are an angel who was a single tick of the great Pazlogion from utter destruction. I'd suggest that in the future you do what you're told, at least when I'm the one telling you. And just like that, heaven vanished, and I was back in a hospital bed, full of hurt and stitches, but also, and quite remarkably, still alive and still in possession of my very own soul, however ragged around the edges it might be. Chapter 49, The Station. I spotted him from about a block away on the corner of Broadway and Spring. Last-minute Christmas shoppers flowing around him like a tall, sharp rock in the middle of a stream. Of course, in that long coat and Dickensian top hat, he was hard to miss. My pale friend was doing a funny little two-step, of course, scarf fluttering in the brisk wind. Everything seemed back to normal. "Mr. Dollar Bob," he said when he spotted me. He tipped his hat. "Such a pleasant thing to see. So happy to notice you are all attached, body parts and such." "Yeah, Foxy, same to you, I guess." My body parts were intact and connected all right, but my knees were still wobbly from the previous day's interview upstairs. "How's business?" He performed a little samba move, one hand pressed against his belly. Step, step, spin, stop. "Very good now. Was a little worried. Foxy is not in the munitions field. He does not make bang-bang guns like your other friend, Mr. Orban. War is bad for business." He smiled, his teeth impressively white, considering that they had to compete with his albino complexion. "But now, no war. All happiness, all good things. So now Mr. Fox is happy. "War? You talking about heaven?" "Of course. When the folks upstairs or downstairs have a really big fight, all of us mousies hide in the grass." He laughed. He really did sound relaxed. I wished I felt the same, but the cold gray day really fitted my mood. I'd survived my face-to-face with Corral, but that I felt sure had been only because I was no threat to him whatsoever. In fact, I was totally irrelevant. I'd been through hell, literally, lost everything I cared about, all to get some answers, but the only real answer seemed to be, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And I wasn't even going to receive that last consolation of the stubborn idealist, a hero's death. I was walking around alive only because I didn't really know how to do anything else, and because I needed to leave the apartment occasionally to buy more booze. "Yeah, well, I'm happy for you," I said. "Enjoy the holidays." "Hold on, Mr. Dollar B. I have a message for you." "Message?" "A friend is waiting in the square. You might want to drop by. I could think of a couple of possibilities, none of which I liked much. I'm relieved to hear my enemies are now willing to wait politely to kill me instead of pushing and shoving to get to the front of the line. Just thinking about it made me feel sour. It was one thing living in a self-induced alcoholic coma, another getting taken down like a punk in the middle of the Pioneer District in front of God and everyone. I took a quick look around to make sure Pumbaa the Nazi wasn't crouching somewhere nearby, waiting to avenge his beloved Timon. You have a very unique humor, Bobby Money Man, said my dancing friend. Everyone knows. It's fun. I wait breathlessly for the chance to do business with you again someday. I hope not too breathlessly, I said, but when I turned again, he was nowhere to be seen, gone like a white fox into snow. I walked into Beager Square carefully, eyes open and a hand in my pocket. The bench looked so cold and windblown that I almost felt sorry for the figure sitting there, but I'd seen that small hunched shape before. I walked slowly across the square toward her. Yes, her. Temuel was wearing his little old Latina lady body again. A battered shopping bag sat beside him, threatening to tip over and blow away any moment. I stared, not quite willing to sit. Well, I said, Merry Christmas, or close enough. What's a couple of days to an immortal? You're still angry. Wow, good guess. Please, won't you sit down? I wasn't clutching my gun anymore, but I wasn't feeling particularly friendly either. No, thanks. So you're working for Carryle now. Temuel shook his head. Because of the body he wore, Fellini peasant lady type A, I half expected him to make the sign against the evil eye. I can't talk about it, any of it. I told you it was complicated. Well, it is complicated. You know, hearing that isn't as enjoyable as it was the first 24 times. He pulled a thermos out of the shopping bag, unscrewed the top. I'm sure it isn't. But what would you say if someone asked you the same questions? What do you mean? He didn't answer right away, but poured the cup full of something that wafted steam. Coffee? I took it, sniffed, then sipped. It was strangely sweet. What's in this? Horchata. It's South American, I think. You're supposed to drink it cold, but I like it in my coffee. Normally, I'd have run like hell to get away from sweetened, milky coffee, but the dark, dank, sobering chill of the season had sunk through my clothes and skin into my bones. I took another sip. It's okay. You didn't answer me, Bobby. What would you say if I asked you the same sort of questions? What questions? The obvious ones. Why did you risk your life and soul for your friend Sam? Why did you travel to hell? Why did you make a deal with one of the most powerful demons in existence and try to bring down a high angel by yourself? I don't know. Because I couldn't see any easier ways to do it? Because the deck was stacked against me and I didn't have much choice. It wasn't an organized plan. That's just how it turned out. Or, in other words, it's complicated. Temuel held out his hand for the cup, which I discovered to my surprise I'd emptied. He screwed it back onto the top of the thermos. Then something clicked for me. You were working for Carryle all along, weren't you? Nothing is simple, Bobby. That's your excuse? Just like me, you did the best you could? Is that what you're saying? I'm not saying anything. He stood up. I'm giving you something. This time it was an envelope he pulled out of his tattered bag and placed in my hand. But I can tell you one other thing before I go. You've probably noticed that I went out of my way a couple of times to keep information about you from my superiors. He gave me a tired smile, exactly the kind of I'd expect to see on the face of an older lady who'd worked too hard all day for too little thanks. But it wasn't to protect you, Bobby. That's beyond my capabilities. I stood up too. What's that mean? I can't protect you from the major players. I don't have the power. If they want to hurt you, they can hurt you. No, I was just trying to protect your privacy. Sometimes we all need a little privacy. He nodded, then turned and walked away, shoulders bowed as if the tattered paper shopping bag weighed 100 pounds. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I shouted, but Temuel only raised a small hand and waved as he disappeared. Into the Friday afternoon crowd of workers heading for their cars, their homes, their lives, real lives, the kind I didn't have. What the fuck was he talking about? How had he protected my privacy? He'd handed me over to our employers as easy as selling a puppy to a medical lab. Yeah, he gave me a car, a fucking ugly car to boot. But private? Everyone knew about it. Hell, half of heaven had been following me around as long as I'd been driving it. So what did he keep from them? It was only then I realized I was still clutching the slightly soiled envelope he'd handed me. It wasn't that easy to get it open because my fingers were cold. But when I did, all I found was a single piece of paper. The words were printed and the note was unsigned, but I knew who it was from. Your first assignment. San Judas Main Railway Station at 6:15 p.m. Track 11. By the way, I'm going to run past the top of the hour, but I'm going to finish off the book here. So, my new boss, who I now felt pretty sure was also Temuel's old boss, had a job for me already. I should have been pissed off at being ordered around like a hired driver, and I was a little bit. But I was also deep into a stretch of several long days of not giving a shit about anything. All I'd been planning to do tonight was get hammered and watch television with the sound off anyway. Maybe Carlisle needed someone picked up. Maybe that's why heaven let me keep the taxi. Hooray! My new job. I wondered if I'd have to report my tips. I was going to do it, of course. If it turned out to be too depressing, I could always throw myself under the San Francisco Commuter Express, which would at least liven up my weekend. It was weird that the note hadn't told me what to look out for, but I was guessing it was going to be Carlisle himself, come down to earth for one of his infrequent visits. Maybe he was going to give me a personal briefing on whatever dirty work he wanted me to do. Well, I'd play along, but Carlisle was going to learn that he didn't have as much of a hold on me as he thought he did. See, I'd lost pretty much everything, so what did I have left to be scared about? Destruction? Don't make me laugh. At this point, an eternity of darkness and silence seemed like the nicest, most soothing thing I could imagine. I suppose hell was the real implied threat, but even that didn't have the terror for me it once had. Torture no longer seemed like that big a deal. It was only pain, whether for a moment or an eternity. I've learned how to do pain. Because I was looking for a tall, soldierly figure, the type Carlisle seemed to choose on Earth, I didn't notice the much smaller passenger at first, even though most of the other arrivals had already swept by me, bumping their luggage along and talking urgently into their phones. Then the announcer's voice, which had been reading a list of destinations over the public address system, suddenly turned into echoing nonsense in my head as the small, slender woman pulled off her wool hat and her straight white gold hair fell down onto her shoulders like a flash of sunlight on snow. I should have run to her that instant, grabbed her before she disappeared again forever, but it felt too much like a dream. The weird kind where you can't make your body do what you want. In fact, I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. There she really, truly was, wearing some ridiculously gorgeous skirt and coat combination, looking like a young Ivy League co-ed just arrived for the first time in 1930s Paris, and I could only stare, my heart somersaulting inside my chest. Then, at last, my brain found the levers and I could move again. I ran to her, grabbed her arm, and spun her around. Her eyes flared open, a moment of fear before the gasp of recognition. And we were holding each other so hard that it hurt. We kissed and kissed and kissed. If you've ever had this kind of reunion, you know the frustration and the glory. You can't say what you're thinking because the words wouldn't make sense. You can't do what you really want to do because there are laws and things, and the police would come, and also you'd wind up in a dozen people's internet videos. So all the energy and surprise and sudden need went into our kiss. We had our mouths pressed so tightly, we were breathing through each other. Kaz was crying. Ordinary tears of water and salt, not the icy flakes that had dotted her eyes the last time I saw her. I might have cried a little too. I'm not usually the weeping kind, but it is a human body I'm wearing. You have to remember, I'm not a stone. At last I loosened my hold on her, then holding her lip with my teeth until the last gentle second I ended the kiss. I looked hard, but I already knew. Even hell couldn't make an imitation this good, this real. It's really you, isn't it? Really you this time. Her eyes were shiny. I could hit you if that would make things feel more ordinary. I might have been laughing then, might have been crying again. I don't have the words, baby, I said when I could talk. But let's... Oh, God, yes, she said. Take me somewhere. I don't care how squalid. It can even be your apartment. Just take me somewhere and fuck me until I faint. Sexual need shook me like a terrier shakes a rat. I struggled for a second before I could string words together. I have the perfect place, actually. Then let's go. Now. I only have the weekend and I have to go back. Back? To Kainos. The angel told me I have to go back Sunday night. Don't let's waste time talking about it, Bobby. I steered her across the station and toward the parking lot, our steps echoing up in the high ceiling with hundreds of others. For the moment, we were just two people who could do what they wanted, at least for a short while. Sunday, huh? I was drowning in happiness, even as I realized what a perfect trap I had fallen into. I should have known Kariel was too smart to make the kind of mistakes Anaita had. He had me in a way that fear could never accomplish. He was going to use Kaz to keep me on a leash. At that moment, though, I didn't particularly care. Did not care. If I was heaven's dog, I was now officially the happiest dog on earth, at least for the next 48 hours. I threw my arm around Kaz's shoulder and pulled her to me, smelled the back of her neck and kissed her there, smooching and sniffing and biting until she squirmed. This perfect place, I said. You'll like it. Sure, I will. She forced herself to concentrate on walking. A friend helped me hang on to it. Through all the shit, I realized I could actually say it and mean it. There was a lot of shit, as it turned out, but just enough friends. She wasn't really listening. Where's your car? That one? Oh, Bobby, not really. No remarks, I said with what I hoped was a quiet dignity. It runs. It will get us where we're going. She turned, sweetly hiding the grin that had spread across her face. No, really, it's lovely, Bobby, so yellow. But where are we going? I told you it's perfect. My friend helped me hang on to it and keep it secret, and I only just figured out why. So I'd have a place to be with you, with neither heaven nor hell to bother us. I grinned. Don't worry, you'll approve of the furnishings. In fact, it's your own apartment. Epilogue. Yes, I know you'd like details, but for once, you are not going to get them. I mean, come on, don't you have any imagination? I will tell you this much. We barely kept our clothes on long enough to get inside the apartment. And we didn't make it as far as the bedroom. Not until early Saturday morning, anyway. We broke a couch, kicked over the coffee table, and pulled down a couple of very pretty silk hangings, and all that while we were just getting started. Later, we were lying on the carpet, naked and shiny with sweat. I had an upended lamp pressed against my rib cage, which was a tiny bit uncomfortable, but I didn't have the strength to move. Also, I had my face buried in the side of Kaz's neck, just behind her ear, so that I could feel her pulse beating against my cheek as it finally slowed to something approaching normal. No offense to the highest, but that is my true idea of heaven. What are we going to do? I asked when I could stop inhaling the fragrance of warm Kaz long enough to form words. What are we going to do when Sunday night comes? We're going to do what we're told, she said. You're going to put me on the train, and I'm going to magically go back to Kainos, because then we'll get to do this again, and again, and again. But I don't want to let you go. I want you to live here with me, not go back to some cold, empty, wild place. I don't ever want to let go of you again. She was silent for a long time, but it wasn't the dreadful kind of silence I'd been forced to endure so many times before, the silence of hopelessness. Actually, I've come to like it there, she said. It's quite beautiful, and there are still people. The Third Way pilgrims all survived, thanks to you and Sam and Haraheliel. Don't you dare get the kid's name right. He'll expect me to do it too. I rubbed my cheek up and down the back of her neck. Do you really like the place? It's quiet. Oh, Bobby, after hundreds of years in hell, that's such a blessing. And the weather's real, and it changes. Changes. One day sunshine, another day rain, and the rain is actual water, clean water. Yeah, I get it. I went through a few of the rainstorms in hell, like an amusement park ride built around Montezuma's revenge. But it's not just that. The people living there have a purpose. They're rebuilding, and when they finish with that, they'll keep going. They're making something new, something no one's ever seen before, and when I'm there, I'm part of it. I wondered what the pilgrims made of Kaz. They couldn't know she was a demon, could they? So Karail's just letting Kainos be? Not interfering? I'd filled her in on what I'd learned earlier when we'd staggered to the kitchen at one point in search of water and food. I don't know. For now, anyway. Hearing you talk about it, I almost wish I could go back with you. And thinking about her, going back without me on Sunday evening, made me hold her even tighter. She laughed. I don't think it's your kind of place, Bobby. Not a single poorly lit street corner or dive bar on the whole planet. Hey, there's slightly more to me than that. I'm teasing. She reached down to stroke me, to show me she was sorry. She held on and squeezed. She was clearly very sorry. I'd be happy to be anywhere with you, my beloved angel. He's not going to let me anyway. I held her close, marveled at how well we fit together, like two puzzle pieces that had come off the lathe side by side but had been separated for years. Karail doesn't strike me as the kind of dude who does things for sentiment or even amusement. He's kept me around for a reason. I know. That scares me. Why? Because, let's just not talk about it. Let's pretend we only have this one time, this one weekend, and let's not waste a second of it. Something chilled me then, and I half lifted myself off her. Are you trying to tell me something? She looked at me in concern, and for a moment I thought I saw the old terror, but then her eyes widened as she understood. She smiled, and I saw it was all right. Oh, no, Bobby, I didn't mean anything. We'll do what we're told, and we'll see each other again and again. I just didn't want to waste too much time talking. There are better ways to communicate. I saw what she was getting at, or rather, I felt it. Okay, you're right, I said. You can't do that by Nizik. She really was right. We had more important things to do than worry about what our bosses wanted from us or what came next. Only a fool walks into paradise with a chip on his shoulder, searching for the ugliness behind the beauty. I'd been that fool for a long time, but now I'd earned myself a little time off, a vacation. This is a holiday, I said, turning her toward me so I could appreciate her perfect nakedness once again. I leaned over and kissed her chill, soft mouth. It means holy day. My demon woman reached up to me. You certainly talk a lot, Wings. I think it's time to stop talking again for a while. She was right again, and I was right to listen to her. In fact, at least for these few fleeting moments, all was right with the world. That doesn't happen very often, of course, and those who know eternity tell me it never lasts. We have to grab it when it's there and hold on as long as we can, because that's the only good we can know for certain. Everything else we are and everything else we do, whether it's born in our bones and blood or spawned from our restless souls, is only an act of faith. And that is the end of Sleeping Late on Judgment Day. And now I am going to go pack it up for the evening. And I will be back tomorrow, later today, 7 p.m., and we will start something new. It's not something written by me, but I think it should still be interesting to people who like tad fiction. Until that point, thank you. Thank you so much for staying with me through this whole long. I've now read all 3 of the Bobby Dollar books. That's the first time I've ever finished anything I've written as a reading. And I appreciate your patience and your interest. Take good care of yourselves. That's the first thing. Take good care of friends and family. People around you need a little help. Keep your eyes open for that. And first of all, though, take care of yourselves. These are tricky times, and everybody needs a little help sometimes. Until I see you again, whether live or recorded or on YouTube or wherever, please be well. Peace. I will see you very soon. Ciao, bambini.